And welcome back to another edition of 705 Sports. Dan is with me once again.
We're welcoming back, and it's only just welcome right now.
Well,
just like China. While we're recording this, China is welcoming the world.
Yeah, they're putting together an awesome opening ceremony. We can't show any of it, or else we will get flagged. And not like a cool flag.
No, it's like one of those red flags, or
yes,
red flags in soccer, or red
or like
in soccer.
We'll have to surrender like a cream flag,
cream
like your
flag.
shirt.
Yeah, my shirt. Yeah.
But let's get right in, as I say, dive right into the show, and we're gonna start off with the Greyhounds. I'm shocked you didn't give me an eye roll for that. So, with Tanner Dickinson being injured, we're getting into our poll question here. Do you feel the Greyhounds can still hold that top of the West without Tanner Dickinson? So, yes. No, or still towards the top, or maybe middle of the pack. What are you thinking, Dan?
I worry that he's a top scorer. He's was the only player to go to the U.S. junior team, and there's something else you'll possibly miss out on. Like it's a femur fracture, so it's 4 to 6 months heal time, and they're wanting to hold that in August. And here's hoping something like that doesn't end a career. That it wouldn't be the first or last time a femur fracture is up. But are they going to make? They aren't going to be first anymore. They could fall as low as fifth. There is a bit of a point lead there, but these other teams are going to look at soon and go, "Oh, here's our chance," right? So.
And it's tough, right? Especially after we just watched their game last night versus North Bay, where they had a lead and they really fell apart in the third period. And someone like Tanner Dickinson is a player that he has, for one thing, his skill doesn't meet anyone. We have a highlight of this one play that he did, and it is just unbelievable. When he didn't score on it, but when you got someone who's willing to do the Michigan move at full speed, and like this year he's got 18 goals, 29 assists for 47 points. So already has more goals and more points than he did last season.
Yeah.
Already, and he's played less games. So like, it's a big loss. He's third in the team in scoring.
I love the positivity coming out of the head coach and the rest of the organization, Raftis and others, saying we have others. Next man up. Next man up is a thing in sports all the way along. Next man up is great, but Tanner Dickinson at probably 70% is better than probably your next man up in most cases because of his talent level.
Yeah.
So you're going to lose probably half your expected from one player going forward. The person that replaces him probably scores half of what he did. And if he does that, I think the Sioux will be happy. But it's that scoring that you need to crack down on your defense. Like you were doing 9-0 games. Your 9-1 games, 9-2 games are probably gone now. You're back to your 4 and 5 goals because you have the rest of the team that can score 4 and 5 goals.
For sure. And I think
we just got to crack back down on that defense side again.
Well, and I think too, goaltending is going to be a huge factor as well, right? Like
it doesn't matter what
we need the goaltending, but I mean now if the team can't score as much as it could before, we're going to need that goaltending, and especially on a road trip. So the Hounds are currently on a road trip. We have a graphic that's going to come up on your screen about this road trip. So they lost their first one, 5-2 to North Bay. They play North Bay again tonight, and then Sudbury on Sunday and Sudbury on Tuesday. As you know, Dan, road trips are hard enough. Now do a road trip without one of your star players. It's that much harder.
Okay, so you could say North Bay, relatively good team. Saw the poll the other day on the OHL thing. Lots of fans. So not relatively good team. Could give the Sioux a run for their money on any given night. Again, down one player, down one really good player. Your defense has to kick in. Your goaltender has to kick in. Like you were up 2, I think it was 2-0 last night at one point. 2-1. So those are the games you're going to have to, and we say with the NHL too. Those are the games you have to learn to win if you're going to be in the playoffs. Because you're not getting 6-2, 6-3, 6-4.
And I agree with you. And I'm really hope for the Greyhounds. This was their game to get used to the new lineup. We had it. We struggled. North Bay is a hard team to play against.
They're more physical.
They are. Not that the Greyhounds are a weak team. They love to hit. But North Bay, it almost reminds me of the Boston Bruins.
I was thinking
OHL.
they were like a Western Hockey League team.
Yeah.
They could go play in the Western Hockey League and be perfectly fine there.
They're very physical. They have strong goaltending.
I watched the Regina Pats the other night against the Wheat Kings, and you want to see hitting. There's your Western-style hockey again. But we got to move on here. There were 15 games for that player that took out Dickerson. Yeah,
I think 15 is fair.
15 is fair, but I still believe that, and this should be across all sports, if you intentionally hurt somebody, you come back when they do. It's a hard sell. Absolutely,
it's tough
it is.
because then you have to prove intent, right? And you have to establish that, because so many times players get injured on plays that aren't even that. This was a bad hit. I'm not denying that. This was a bad hit. But there's so many times.
Intentionally do it?
Yeah, they're two players rushing for the puck. I don't think he was trying to break his leg.
No, and it wasn't like it was that you could fix that with that dump-in rule either, where if you made it to the hash mark, it wasn't that type of play.
Okay, so I don't know. See, you probably remember. Do you remember the bear hug?
Yes.
So when players would go into the boards, what they used to do, and I would use my drink as an example. You're coming in, and instead of pounding the guy into the boards, what you do is you grab him, and then you just bring him into the board softly.
And that's
play.
That doesn't help here though either, because it happens the other side of the icing line. Like, you came at him, you're both rushing for the puck. Like, that bear hug works if you're coming, and they got rid of that when they did the icing change.
Yes.
Because now if you get to the hash mark and the defenseman gets there before you do, it's blowing dead, it's icing. So that was the fast fix to that. This is one of those plays. But we do have to move on to a team that doesn't seem to want to be moving on.
No, the Chicago Blackhawks.
Or at least when they're questioned about it.
They had a press conference, and there's a couple clips that we're going to roll. So let's roll the first clip of this very interesting
I think much of what happened to Kyle Beach stemmed from a power imbalance between a coach and a player, and the powerlessness of a player in that situation. So what are the Blackhawks doing? What have the Blackhawks done? What will the Blackhawks do to empower a player in a similar situation to make sure that doesn't happen again?
I'm going to answer the question at the end. I think the report speaks for itself. The people that were involved are no longer here. We're not looking back at 2010. We're looking forward. And we're not going to talk about 2010. I know, and I'm not either. And we're not going to talk about what happened. We're moving forward. That is my answer. Now, what's your next question?
I can pick up to what we are doing today. And I think
I don't know. That's none of your business. That's none of your business. What we're going to do today is our business. I don't think it's any of your business.
How is it not my business?
Because I don't think it's any of your business. You don't work for the company. If someone in the company asks that question, we'll answer it.
So that was the first clip of a reporter speaking with the owner of the Blackhawks, and they're just asking about, what are you doing going forward to avoid a situation like Kyle Beach?
It wasn't even directed at Rocky.
No.
It was directed at Dan, who's sitting there, and he wanted to answer. He tried to answer it halfway through. It's none of your business. You have been caught red-handed. Mm-hmm. Same as somebody else in the city this week. You've been caught red-handed. It becomes the business of the people who, your fan base and everything else, when your people that pay your salaries, it becomes their business. Because you were caught red-handed not doing something, and it wasn't like he was asking for super details, he was just asking for a broad stroke.
Well, all he was asking for is basically, what are you doing moving forward? They kept going on, it's 2010, back when they won the Stanley Cup. And don't get me wrong, I understand that was a bit ago. We even have some vids of when they won that cup. But it's just getting to the point now, it's like, okay, you made the mistake. You screwed up. So now you need to face it and handle it.
Let's look at Michigan State and Penn State just for a minute. We're gonna go down that road. Both times they were caught doing serious issues along the same sort of lines. And both times they were very public about how they corrected it, what they've done to fix the situation, past getting rid of the people that were at. But they've talked about the complaint lines, the employee help, all those things they brought in. This is not here with Chicago, or at least if it is, we're not being told about it.
Well, no, and then, so you think maybe the owner might realize, okay, you know what? I need to calm down. But instead, during this press conference, I figured out what I wanted to say, this press conference, he went at another journalist, and we have another clip from this press conference.
My name is Phil Thompson. I'm with the Chicago. You guys talked about a change in culture and transparency and demonstrating the new culture and values that are going to protect players and protect the organization in the future. And it seems like the second that we asked a question about that, it's met with resistance. So I'm going to ask it again.
I answered it.
No, I don't.
I answered it, and I told you to get off the subject.
You didn't tell me.
We're not going to bring up the report.
No,
you read it.
We're not asking about the report. We're
I know
asking
you're talking about what the report was talking about, and I told you we're moving on.
We're
I don't
asking
like
about
these.
the
I think
values
you're out
and
of
the
line
protections
to ask
for the
this line of
future.
questions. Why don't you ask about something else? Why don't you ask about the GM
Okay, I
search?
will ask
Why don't you do
about-
something else?
Okay, I
Why
will
do you
ask
bring
about
up
attendance.
old business?
Some of the season ticket holders that I've talked to said that they're having trouble maintaining value on their resale because, you know, a lot of people.
Is
they're
that a
paying- they're
fact?
selling- wait a minute,
I
can
didn't
finish
realize
my-
you're in our ticket department.
Okay, what
Come
I'm
on.
saying is.
Why, come
if I
on.
could-
Let's
if-
talk about all the negative stuff. When I
This
talk
is
about
not
your
negative.
paper and
People-
what the sports
these are
page looks
dedicated-
like, should I do that?
So then he decides to not just not answer the questions. Let's belittle him and berate him and be like, "Oh, is that fact? Is that fact? Is that fact? What about your site? What about your viewers?" It's like, what are you doing?
From a journalist in Sault Ste. Marie who gets questioned fairly frequently on whether I'm good at my job or not, and whether I should be continuing to do my job. You have a thick skin in this job. That's a guarantee.
Oh, 100%.
But when you're asking a very legitimate question and you get hounded and basically belittled publicly and very publicly now because this has gone viral, it's hard on it can be hard on the psyche. And you're actually injuring, it's ironic, you're injuring the mental health of a person who's asking questions
about mental health.
About mental health. He's so out to statement, but out to lunch, and the next, or later that night, I guess, at this point, is when he wrote this statement, apparently.
Yeah, he put a tweet up on his Twitter, which will go on your screen as Dan reads it.
Tonight, at the Chicago Blackhawks town hall, my response to 2 questions crossed the line. I want to apologize to the fans and those reporters, and I regret my response overshadowed the great work this organization is doing to move forward. We have the right leaders and right processes in place to create a safe environment for our employees and players, and he still doesn't answer the question. Like, you would think if you had time to reflect on this, you would answer the question about how you're creating a safe environment for your employees. We know who you put in place. What are the processes and how are you doing it? He still could not be bothered in a semi-apologetic tweet to answer the question both those journalists brought forward.
How much do you want to bet he didn't write that tweet? Guarantee you.
There was a PR person involved.
Bet money, which I never do because I'm cheap, if anyone knows me. I would bet money
that was somebody
that he did not write that tweet. But I will also bet money that we need to get to a commercial break, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Superior Adult Learning is looking for volunteers who want to make a difference in our community and help others reach their full potential. In only a few hours a week, you can help our learners achieve their goals and set them on a path towards a successful, independent future. Visit www.superioral.ca to get started now. Shop local, dine local, listen local, love local. Small businesses in the Algoma area have been a huge part of our community. Now is the time to show our support for them, from local markets to retail stores, music venues, and restaurants. Small businesses make up the backbone of our community. So go on, embrace all they have to offer by shopping, dining, listening, and loving local. Visit ssmcoc.com to learn more or to join the chamber today.
And welcome back. See, I can say welcome back because we're coming back. You said welcome back. I don't know why you did that at the top. We are headed into talk about stuff on the ice. And we're halfway through, or basically halfway through, depending on where you fit with the COVID and everything else. Mm-hmm. We're halfway through the season. We got to look at those individuals and those teams that are going to be making or breaking the playoffs.
Exactly. So, let's start with the Eastern Conference. And to start, we're going to start with our cup contenders. And we have the Penguins, Lightning, the Maple Leafs, Hurricanes.
Stop right there. We're putting the Maple Leafs on a cup contender.
Yes.
Is that not like doing what they did in friggin' Chicago for years, saying, we're going to win the World Series, and then it just doesn't happen?
No, I think legitimately this is the best we're going to get with the core 4 setup, besides maybe adding a defenseman at the deadline, which we'll get into that a bit later in the show. But yeah, I do think this is the Leafs' best shot. Now, what we need to look at as well, though, are teams that are kind of on the cusp, are playoff-bound / fighting chance. And we have another graphic. Oh, look how beautiful
shocker,
that was.
The Bruins are there.
Yeah, the Bruins have a fighting chance. I would say then also the Red Wings, as much as they're lower in the standings, they're a team that they have a fighting shot.
They played well. They're playing well right now, and if they play that way, then yeah, they have a fighting chance.
And then obviously Capitals and Penguins. You can't ever count out either one of those teams because of Crosby and Ovechkin.
And then somebody who doesn't seem to understand that put a person on Ovechkin on the power play.
Yeah.
Literally hold on to his jersey and stand with him.
Yeah, it's...
You've been doing this, what, he's 13 years or 14 years into his career?
Yeah.
So, anyway, I don't understand. But how you cannot just put somebody in front of him all the time.
But now we're going to move on to the Western Conference Cup contenders, which, surprisingly enough, the West is a bit weaker than the East this year.
Yes.
Now, the West is also more competitive, so you can argue that is it weaker or is it that because the teams are closer?
You took the argument out of my mouth.
But we have the Avalanche, Predators, Golden Knights, and I put the Ducks in here as a Cup contender, and I want to... You look perplexed. No one can see Dan's perplexed face. He looks perplexed. And the reason why I'm putting the Ducks is they're a very young, skilled team with... I think you could argue one of the best goalies going into this playoff round.
And goaltending will always take you as far... You only go as far as your goaltending.
Look at Montreal last year. Key. If Gibson can play like Price did...
On that note, Price is probably done for the season, even though he wants to come back.
Yeah, we talked about that on Wednesday.
I can't see them bringing him back for any reason at this point in time.
No.
Unless it's to buy him out in the offseason. Ooh, there's a thought, too.
Possible, but I mean... Obviously, Golden Knights, Avalanche, Predators. Predators are one of those teams that, you know what, if they get the goaltending...
What would you think about Kadri versus the Leafs in a freaking 7-game Stanley Cup final?
Kadri's going to want to get paid.
Yes, he is.
Dollar bills. But let's move to the playoff-bound / fighting chance teams in the West. So, we have the Blues, the Jets, and the Stars... The Flames, Kings, and Oilers. One thing that's been disappointing this year, actually two big things, have been the Flames and the Oilers. The way they both started so hot, and then they kind of...
We should have had 5 Canadian teams in the playoffs.
Realistically.
We're going to have...
Maybe 2? 3 at the most.
3 at the most.
If that, maybe only 1.
Winnipeg, Toronto.
Edmonton. Maybe.
If they can figure out how to
again,
score.
Winnipeg's a maybe, too. Like, I think Toronto's your definite Canadian team that's going to make it, unless they...
Could you imagine a whole nation having to rally around Toronto as their only team? That ain't going to happen.
But...
Unlikely to make the playoffs.
Are you going to do the graphic thing?
We can do the graphic thing. Hey, it almost worked. Maybe if I had just done this anyway. Senators, Canadians, Sabres, Blue Jackets, Islanders, Canucks, Flyers, Devils, Blackhawks, Kraken, Blackhawks a second time, and the Coyotes. Anyway, the Coyotes.
The Coyotes. You know what? I think they need to change their name. I think that'll bring the fans in.
That'll bring the fans
in.
They're not going to be the Coyotes anymore. They're going to be the Coyotes because they're owned by everybody else.
Yes.
Anyway, the Canucks there, if they continue to improve, they might get on that maybe list. They're a long way down.
I don't think so, personally.
And the Kraken, again, on that maybe list, maybe not. You don't think so?
They're not even in the basement. They're in the wine cellar underneath the basement.
Are they trying to get a pick?
Yes, I do believe so. I mean, congrats on Grubauer for getting the first shutout in Kraken history.
Here's the other side of that, though, too. We're going to get to watch some of these teams who can tank the best. There should be a stat on that. And we have a bait list, a trade bait list.
Our trade bait list. So since we're at the unofficial midway point of the season, we're starting to look at players that could be on the move. So I've like Thomas Hertl. Klimberg's been one that's been drawing a lot of attention. I'm wondering where Phil Kessel will go. I think if a team was smart, they'd grab him for secondary scoring.
Boston.
He is a playoff machine. Well, Boston's looking to get rid of Jake DeBrusk because he just hasn't really worked there this year. There are a couple goaltenders
DeBrusk
too.
For Kessler, wouldn't that be a pay? DeBrusk, here you go. You're going to the desert.
Then we got a couple good goaltenders too, and Chris Drieger, Marc-Andre Fleury. There's more goalies, obviously. This is just kind of the main top players who are up there.
What about Mrazek?
From what I'm hearing, the Leafs don't want to trade Mrazek until minimum the offseason. They're going to reevaluate the goaltending situation. Mrazek has looked better his past couple starts.
Could we look at a one-on, like we were doing with our local team here, for at least for a while, because Campbell was looking a little burnt out.
He was, and I mean...
There's a mid-season slump to every goalie, too. But
mind you, his last start, Campbell looked really strong, and going into the All-Star break, actually, Campbell did speak to reporters, and there's a graphic that's going to come up on your screen, and he basically said that my play going into the break hasn't been up to my standards, but exciting to feel good going into the break. This is not the principle of the journey. It's just the start. I've worked hard at this point, and I'm honored to represent the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I think especially that last bit where he says he's honored to represent the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think Leaf fans have been really waiting for a goalie to feel like they really want to be a part of this organization. And Campbell looked a lot better his last start. And I don't know if you got a chance to watch this game.
I watched a bit of it, and team looked better in front of him, too.
They did, and Sheldon Keefe talked about that as well, that, you know what, we weren't playing well in front of Jack, and it wasn't doing him any favors. Yeah. But when the defense had its collapses in this game, because they still did, like,
they had about 4 or 5 big gasps for the part that I watched, and it's like, you know what?
And then Campbell was able to shut the door. So yeah. This is the goaltending. Man, that was really good timing. Like, this is the goaltending.
Yes.
That the Leafs expect out of Jack Campbell is what he did against New Jersey and what he's been doing all season, especially that save against Colorado.
Bailing them out when they screw up.
Exactly. That's, you know, and that's what they really need from Mr. Campbell. And that's why, like, the Leafs definitely, for first time in a while, I don't think there's a goaltending controversy in Toronto, which we haven't had that in a very long time. There's goaltending controversies in other Canadian teams like Edmonton, which, if we think back to our trade bait list, I think Edmonton should get Marc-Andre Fleury if they really want to push for a cup.
Here's one of those things, too. We're going to talk about Edmonton and their new lines here for a minute. It's almost like going out and getting the unmentionable.
Vander Kane
has decided to light a fire under the team. It's almost like we want to prove everybody wrong.
And we have a graphic that's going to come up on your screen for these new lines. And you're right, Dan, and I think what Kane also adds, if you look, now you can move Hyman down to the third line of Nugent Hopkins. Puljujarvi can still play with Draisaitl. Now they have some depth.
Shocker.
Just adding, whether you like Evander Kane or not, he is a high skill, a high level player. So he adds something to Edmonton that they need. I still don't think they're done. I think the Oilers need to find a goalie. And this is no disrespect to Koskinen. I almost want to say Cassian. Yeah, I don't know if Cassian was in that, they'd be in a lot of trouble. But with Koskinen, he is
more goalie fights, though.
He's a backup netminder. And that's what he is. He is a solid backup netminder. Mike Smith, unfortunately,
does not
is like just too old, I think, and he just can't. It's a shame because last season he played outstanding, and I really.
If you could have this team last season, Edmonton goes places.
They really do, because Mike Smith was playing really solid, and you know what we saw with Evander Kane, especially in this game against Montreal, where they won 7-1. Edmonton did. It was just adding the depth in the lines. Kane even getting his first goal with the Oilers, and it is adding the depth that Edmonton desperately need, and I mean desperately.
Most good players come with baggage, and with that, we have baggage that we have to shuttle off. And not that our sponsors are baggage, but we'll be taking our baggage with us if we don't go to our sponsors. So we'll see you after the break.
École publique Éco des Rapides, a place where your child can learn, grow, and be happy. Discover why more and more families are choosing École publique Éco des Rapides for their child. Register your child January 17th to the 21st at epedr.cspgno.ca. Parce que je vois grand.
And welcome back. And since I completely butchered the baggage thing leaving, I get to try and fix it. Teams, and in this case, sports don't have a lot of baggage for a lot of the season, is the Major League Baseball. They just had a meeting, and it obviously didn't go well. There were reports of it being heated, and I can only imagine what heated baseball players say to owners that don't necessarily want to pay them. But it went bad enough, they're asking for a federal negotiator. That's usually, actually a federal arbitrator to be right, that's usually not a good thing. Spring training's supposed to start in, about 20 days, and that doesn't look like it's going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
I was listening last night to a sports broadcast, and the players don't really lose anything until they don't play their first 5 games of the regular season. They don't get paid for spring training, they get a per diem. But they don't actually get paid. It's going to start to hurt the players and the owners when regular season games get canceled. And of course, it would be the regular season where the Jays look like they might actually have a legitimate chance. The last time they went on strike, we may have mentioned Expos. But here's hoping they can come around, and this arbitrator, who I do not envy his position whatsoever, can figure this out. But before we go any further, I think, what are we looking at here now?
We're going to be talking about a punt. Yes.
I had to double check. It does say punter. He can't zoom in, but it does say punter right here on my script. And I had to look at it and go, what are we doing talking about a punter? And then I saw the punter. Play the clip.
And we look at this. This is Mike Isaiah. These are 70 to 80 yard punts. Look at
65,
this.
73, and 77 yards.
That
one was 77. They thought it rolled 80 by the time it was all said and done.
But okay, so this is a prime example here of why I'm saying this could be game changing. So you're in your own end zone, right? You're thinking you're in some trouble here. You're thinking
field positions, 40 to 50, whatever.
Do we even just take a knee and give them a couple points and take the field position? Well, if this is your punter, you really don't need to worry about that. This kid,
they don't even go down and chase the punt. They're all about protecting the punter.
Look at this. Look at this. That punt
77 yards.
That punt is insane. Imagine if you can pin someone from your own end zone to
that's
the 20.
That's 7 yards deep plus 3, and that's before you get to the 77 from the line of scrimmage on. So that's almost 87 yards he punted that football. The solution is to make them punt the game ball, but that would hurt.
I don't think you can. This is going to sound crazy, but I think you're going to see a punter get drafted pretty early once he is eligible for the draft.
That's next year.
Mind you, too, the Bengals proved last week that having a kicker is super important, right?
Yeah, but you can also vote for... there was the other team that hasn't used their kicker much, and that came back to bite them in the butt.
Yes, but...
Mahomes. Are we going on to Mahomes yet?
Not yet.
Can we? He could be a punter. He might have been better off.
We will get into Mahomes, but you know what? You're teasing the audience. Let's get into CFL free agency starts coming up. And so let's look at some of the main quarterbacks. Now, Dominic Davis did get signed this morning to Montreal, so he's no longer available. But your main guys that are in red, as you can see, would be like Jeremiah Masoli, Trevor Harris, and Matthew Schwartz. You think? Yeah, I think Masoli's going to go to Ottawa. I think Harris might actually go back to Edmonton. Because for some reason they don't seem to trust Arbuckle. They reworked his contract to be more towards a
BC
backup.
doesn't have their spot filled though either.
They are sticking with Nathan Rourke. Oh. Well, think about it. They only pay him $80,000 a year. He's still on a rookie contract, so they could afford to keep all their wide receivers.
Yeah,
it's a gamble, but I can see why they're doing it. But those are some of the main quarterbacks left. I'm curious to see where Michael O'Connor goes. I think if you're a team that's short a Canadian player, because he is a Canadian quarterback with some upside, never really gets a chance to play. And
Montreal.
He could go to Montreal as a third string. Isaiah Harker, a little surprised he hasn't been re-signed by Saskatchewan. I guess they just feel...
You could put O'Connor in Saskatchewan, too.
You know what? True, because, Isaiah Harker wasn't as good at the short game, I think, as they were hoping, and they need someone who can
would do that.
Get those 1-yard plays, because, Cody Fajardo doesn't like to throw much past an 8-yard pass. Or
to his wide receivers that are always the problem.
Yes. But speaking of those wide receivers...
See how I did that?
We have another graphic that's going to come up on your screen about the receivers available for free agency, and there are a lot of good ones. So Duke Williamson's a phenomenal receiver. Kenny Lawler is not going back to Winnipeg, and I'm wondering if that has to do with that DUI charge earlier in the season.
Is he going to get picked up anywhere because of that DUI
BC
charge?
is looking very interested. I think that's why they're keeping a guy like Nathan Rourke. So we also have Jake Winicky. And Ricky Collins Jr. is another one. Greg Elsicken's a big one. And Dan, please read the name at the bottom of that list for me.
Brandon Banks.
How does that make you feel?
I don't know why they haven't signed him again yet.
He's not coming back.
I know.
He's already said that. He's not coming back.
And there has to be a chemistry issue there. That's the only thing I come up with. Or
Did he want Masoli?
He may have wanted Masoli, and does he go where Masoli goes? Does he go to Ottawa?
If all of a sudden Ottawa picks up Masoli and Banks, they're a very different team.
They're a much better team.
They
provided Masoli anyway.
And I mean, and there's still some great running backs as well. With like Andrew Harris is the one that really surprised me. There's been no contract communication. Same with Bradley Rivera. So like, bummers. You got to get one of them. I think they were so focused on keeping like Zach Claros on these other guys, they might have forgotten about the running back, which is a big part of their game.
And if I'm their running back and I've seen these other guys get hired and rehired, and I seem to be following further back on that list, what's that make you feel about going back to the team that doesn't seem to value you as much as those other players?
You know, maybe they'll go for a John White because the Argos are sticking with the one running back, so the two for next year. Well, because they signed Mikhail Buffo-Thompson to $400,000. They don't have the money.
Could Harris come to Hamilton?
I don't know though, because they still have Sean Jackson, right? And I think that's
about that
why they're
1-2 punch.
Well, yeah, my gosh, but I think that's why they're letting Erlington go.
Yes, absolutely, it is.
But now, Dan, we get to talk about Patrick Mahomes.
Yes.
So
Mahomes went home after playing what was probably his worst game of his career.
At least the second half.
That second half was atrocious. However, the Bengals have proved to be this team that is really good at halftime changes.
But at the same time,
adjustments.
But at the same time, Patrick Mahomes was sitting on that sideline looking like he's all that in a ham sandwich. And
he
you know
always
what?
has.
I think this might bring him down to earth. I think he's overconfident, and that showed straight up in this game. Right from the second quarter, when they went for that touchdown, when Andy Reid admits he wanted to just kick the field goal. But Mahomes said, no, give me the ball. And he won't even throw it into the bloody end zone. Like,
no. And then this is where you get
I was laughing hysterically.
Why are you not throwing the ball away?
Yeah.
I get you still get your points, but why are you not throwing the ball away?
He got sacked 4 times this game, mostly in the second half. And you're right, Dan. There are plays that there's nothing open.
I'm not going to say Cincinnati is going to beat LA, because I didn't say Cincinnati was going to beat Kansas City. I didn't think that was going to happen. But that Cincinnati team could beat LA.
Well, and you know what? They have a strong quarterback in Joe Burrow, who his dad actually played in the CFL, which I think that's where we see he's very good at getting out of the pocket and making plays happen. We are going to get into the Super Bowl next week, because this weekend is the Pro Bowl. So, and this is like media week for the NFL. So we're going to, basically, Dan and I are going to go back into the vault, look everything up.
We get to go talk about the gimmicky skills competition.
And yeah, now let's move on to the NHL. And
we're going back to the ice
because it's the All-Star weekend. You look very upset. Who hurt you?
Just watched what they're going to do with this fountain face-off. And I appreciate that we are trying to attract younger viewers. I appreciate we're trying to come up with great ways to promote the game. What the hell?
Now, before we get into that, let's first get into the
this was my gimmicky rant.
Yeah,
sorry,
normal skills that are going up. We have a graphic that's going to come up on your screen. And okay, so we still have fastest skater, save streak, harder shot, breakaway challenge, and accuracy shooting.
Which should be done in an hour, but it'll take 3. Yep.
Yes, because they're going to be dumb gimmicks in between. Now, there's no Ovechkin there to put on a sun hat because he unfortunately has COVID-19, or at least he's been exposed. But you know, that's the normal ones. But now let's get into the gimmicks.
Who's the fastest skater? Just off your, you think it's still
McDavid?
McDavid?
McDavid, because Makhayev's not at the All-Star game.
Sure.
But now let's head over to our next graphic, which I believe is the, Dan, your favorite, fountain face-off. So this is basically accuracy shooting on a boat. Do you remember that song by Lonely Islands, I'm on a boat? I'm picturing that song, but hockey.
This looks a lot like what they did the last year or 2 years ago now, where they shot it off the platform in Nashville.
This just looks stupid.
They shot it off the platform in Nashville trying to make the accuracy same idea. This is just taking it to one step stupider.
But then, why are you still doing the accuracy shooting? And then, because they're in Vegas, they decided to add another one, and we have another graphic that's going to come up on your screen. So that's 22 and NHL 21. So essentially it's blackjack, but you can't stand. So you know when you play blackjack, if you don't play blackjack, you're trying to get the cards to get to 21. But let's say you're at 18, you can stand. Or let's say you're at 20, you can stand and say no. They should have did it that way, and then whoever had the best hand goes through with it. Instead, they're like, it's another accuracy shooting contest. But we're going to hit some cards, which this is all happening tonight at 7:30. So I know Dan's excited.
So here's something, players don't want to go to the All-Star game.
No.
Well, I know we're running out of time, but players don't seem to want to go to the All-Star game. So like somebody said, put it in Las Vegas one year, put it in Nashville another, and then there you go. Those are your two party towns. You can bring your buddies, you can do whatever. That was Jeff O'Neill the other night on the TSN broadcast. And I think he's right. As much as I hate the gimmicks, and they're probably going to fall flat tonight, that's our gimmicky.
That's our show. Remember, though, the NHL All-Star Game is also on Saturday, which is the 3-on-3 mini games, which, again, not a big fan of it. But we got to go. Thank you so much for watching again this week. Thanks for putting up with us for another awesome Friday. And ready?
Yeah, we'll go.
And dabbing out. Back in the On TV studios, letting you know that 705 Sports now has 2 shows a week. We still have the 705 Sports that airs every Friday at noon, but we've expanded to now have a show every Wednesday. 705 Sports Headlines will be a show that is much more condensed, that is very fast-paced, going over the main topics of the week in sports. 705 Sports on Fridays will still cover everything in sports in a full show format. This gives you a chance to really see what's going on in the sports world, whether you have a couple minutes or you got a half an hour. So make sure you join me, Dan Gray, on Fridays and multiple different guests every Wednesday, every Friday at noon, only on TV and Sue Online's Facebook page.